It's The Local Show on News Radio 570 WSYR, a service of Geddes Federal Savings and Loan and Safe Harbor Wills and Trusts. The Local Show, featuring conversations with business owners, employees, and local business leaders about their successes, challenges, and reasons for doing business right here in Central New York. The Local Show is locally produced by Zoey Advertising. Now, your hosts, Tom and Steve.
Welcome in to the 2022 Christmas edition of The Local Show. Merry Christmas, everybody. I'm your host, Tom Soccocio Jr., along with my friend and co-host, Steve Roberts. The Local Show features conversations about local business with business owners, CEOs, CFOs, entrepreneurs, nonprofits, business advocates, and other business-friendly organizations. We talk about how they got into business and why they do business right here in Syracuse, New York, and where their businesses might be going in the future. Now you're going to hear all about their successes, their challenges, opportunities, marketing, and advertising. We're broadcasting from the Zoey Advertising Studios, sponsored by Safe Harbor Wills and Trusts and Geddes Federal Savings and Loan. And then we say hello to everybody's favorite elf on the shelf. It's Steve Roberts.
I'm not on the shelf, Tom. I move around and annoy people. So
they could have modeled the elf on the shelf out of your body physique there.
Maybe a few years ago, because he's kind of thin.
Yeah, well, you're still thin.
Thank you.
The lanky arms.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. How are your glasses working, Tom?
It's a funny thing. I still don't know what the elf on the shelf is.
You know what?
Or what it does.
I don't either. More importantly, I don't care. I don't know. I see people like, they move it around. They don't
get it.
I don't know. I'm usually like a puppy with a bone when I have something like that, but I wasn't interested enough to look in it. Yeah. They move it around. They have the thing. They tie. They do all kinds of. And I guess it's somehow amusing, and that's okay.
Right. Somehow, maybe little kids like it. There's something to that. I don't know.
Or I don't know. It's like the adults that are doing this thing.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And they're putting them in offices.
I think the kids are like, what is that stupid? What are they doing? I don't know.
Oh, fun stuff. Well, we've got a great show for you folks on this holiday weekend. John Tumino is going to stop by. We'll talk with him. He's up first, co-founder of In My Father's Kitchen. And then we're going to talk with Jim Deakins. He's the owner of Crossroads Auction. Josh Ling from Redeemer Church. He stops by. Jimmer Sikowski stops by for a couple of sets, and then we'll do some Tom and Steve Christmas talk about stuff that's local and things that are near and dear to our hearts, and we'll go from there. So it's a Christmas spectacular right here on 570 WSYR, and we say a hearty, healthy good morning to John Tumino, co-founder of In My Father's Kitchen. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Merry Christmas to you guys. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
I think that elf on the shelf, going back to that thing, I think we're all still kids, right? On the inside, it's the little Tom, little Steve, little John that likes that elf.
Tom's a kid. I'm a serious guy.
Yeah, right. One of my favorite memories that I can recall was laying under the Christmas tree. Remember when there was tinsel, when it wasn't like a hazard?
Right. Yeah. It was a hazard. We didn't know it.
I didn't know. Nobody ever died in my family over tinsel, but I guess there was something about it. Anyway, and it was kind of cool to have the tinsel hanging down, the reflection of the lights. And when I was probably 7, 8, 9, I used to slide under there, and I was always doing voices. And I would be mimicking voices from the Christmas specials.
Yeah.
And my parents would be listening in the other room going, this kid's a sick boy. But
I think that's awesome.
I liked laying under there, surrounded by the presents and looking up at the tree.
Remember the tinsel? It was this.
They had the lead stuff, right?
Yeah, remember, there was little Stevie, one piece at a time. Pull it out of the box.
Right. And it would all be clustered.
And it go throw it up there.
I remember that we had 1 year, there was I had 3 brothers at the time because my youngest brother wasn't born yet, but it was a Christmas, and there used to be this other stuff, not the tinsel. It was almost like a snowy stuff. I think it was made out of fiberglass, but it made you itch.
Asbestos.
Oh, I don't know what it was, but 1 year, the 3 of us, we got all into it, and we were itching like crazy. It was like a crazy event.
Was that real lead in the tinsel, though?
That's what made it shine so.
Well, it was heavy.
Special.
I remember there being a heavy one. Oh, my goodness. Well, anyway, John, you've done something really special with your organization. Why don't we give people a little bit of a background, where you came from, and what made you start In My Father's Kitchen?
Yeah, thank you. So my parents, talking about Christmas and stuff, my parents were immigrants to the United States in the 60s, like 1964. I was born in 65. The joke is that my mom was pregnant with me, so I was made in Argentina, who just won the World Cup.
Yes, I was just going to say.
Yes,
World Cup.
and then, but I was born here. So grew up in the restaurant business my whole life. Food was real big. And how I landed within my father's kitchen is because I had an encounter with a guy holding a cardboard sign on an off-ramp. I encountered him, talked to him. He unpacks his life story. That changes my life forever. And here we are now 12 years later, still cooking as a chef and using that talent, but going out and engaging people, living in these places outside, not meant for human habitation, and helping them get indoors.
Is there a certain ethnicity to your cooking? Are you Italian cooking or Spanish cooking?
So both. So Argentina has a lot of Italian background. A lot of Italians after World War II migrated. So there's a lot of meat, potatoes there as well. So it's more Italian. I could cook anything.
Yeah.
I love making chilies and soups and all kinds of stuff for the streets.
Now, Steve and I don't like bananas. I found that out in an interview.
It's the only thing we have in common.
Yeah, we have
nothing else.
But do you make fried plantanos?
No, that's more. That's not an Argentinian thing. That's more of like Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico, more of the Caribbean countries.
Gotcha.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you call them bananas,
yeah, you can't call them bananas.
yeah, like they're not bananas. You get to hear that they're not bananas.
But I love platanos. I mean, they're awesome.
Are they?
Yeah.
Do they taste like a banana?
They're similar. They're not as sweet. They're more on the savory side.
Okay.
You know, the traditional way is smashing them and frying them. No,
yeah.
they're good. And you usually salt them. They're not sweet like a banana.
Okay. All right. Well, there we go. So what's the primary mission of In My Father's Kitchen?
So it's direct street outreach. So we go out as an outreach team with a medical team that's embedded with us now, Dr. Lehman from Upstate, and we bring out food, supplies, clothing, toiletries, and now medical care to folks that are outdoors. And then the mission is using those things as tools to engage people, to build a relationship with them, right? And these folks become our friends, and then they buy into the relationship, and they start to trust us, and then they let us navigate them through to housing, to getting off of drugs into rehabs, or maybe dealing with their untreated mental health and things like that. And that all happens with outreach.
What kind of medical things can you do out there? And then if there's a next step, can you get them to the next step? That's got to be a challenge.
Yeah, so it's amazing. So our outreach van is incredible. The things that I've seen on that van happen that you would see in like in emergency rooms. Like a lot of times when you're addicted to like heroin and things and you're doing intravenous drug use with needles, you get infections and you get abscesses in your body. I've seen some pretty amazing things where we lance them, drain them, doc has to pack them, then we have to go back and visit them. It's stuff that you would see in the ED.
Yeah.
Something I wouldn't look at in the ED, right? Because I'm like, okay, they're doing it, but that's
and prescribing their medication. Some of them don't have their meds, and so they don't have a doctor, so doc prescribes all that. But I've learned a lot about medicine, but I've also seen how that medical piece goes a long way for us to get folks to believe in maybe making a change in their life.
Yeah. How many times a day do you go out and do this?
So we're out twice a week with Doc and our outreach team, but then on the other days we have our Higher Ground, our work day labor program that's out like as we speak right now. Yeah, there's a van out with 9 people working instead of panhandling. They're out there doing their thing. But then it's 5 hours with someone, where I was having a 10-minute encounter with outreach. Now you have 5 hours with someone and they really buy into maybe changing their lives and turning their lives around.
So do you have staff that's out there during the day looking specifically for people who are struggling?
Yeah, so great question. So on the off days other than those street outreach days, there's care management. So we make these connections on the Tuesdays and Thursdays, and on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, our care managers are out re-engaging with those people that we just met and then trying to navigate them through things. So there's constant touching of that individual.
Wow. All right, we're going to talk more about this and where you go to find these people and how people might be able to interact as a general, consumer person in the community with these people. Coming back with John Tumino, he's the co-founder of In My Father's Kitchen right here on the Christmas edition of The Local Show on 570 WSYR and 106.9 FM.
Welcome back to The Local Show, a service of Gettys Federal Savings and Loan and Safe Harbor Wills and Trusts. The Local Show, featuring conversations with business owners, employees, and local business leaders about their successes, challenges, and reasons for doing business right here in Central New York. The Local Show, locally produced by Zoey Advertising. Now, here are your hosts, Tom and Steve.
Back into it and back at it again. Merry Christmas to all of you out there. Thank you for spending some quality time on your Christmas weekend with Steve and I. We've been talking with John Tumino. He's the co-founder, I should say, of In My Father's Kitchen. InMyFathersKitchen.org. That's the proper site, John?
Yes, sir.
Okay, InMyFathersKitchen.org. We were talking about how John goes out there with his team to do outreach to people who might be struggling, not having a home, and living in our community. And we don't know whether, you don't know when you first meet them, whether they have a mental problem or a drug problem. You don't, it's like...
Or both.
Right, or both. Yeah, so you're really taking a chance walking up to somebody and not knowing what to do. How do you approach people and not get hurt?
That's a great question. So I'm not afraid of getting hurt because I think, when you know what you're supposed to do, it's like you guys aren't afraid to go on the radio because this is what you're called.
Well,
right? And some people would be terrified of it, right? So with me, it's the same way.
Yeah.
I just feel like this is my calling. But we engage people that we see standing on the corners. And then we find out based on those panhandlers where they might be staying. Like right now, we have 5 people that we visit that are living in an abandoned house with no heat and running water. They're just in a vacant, they call them zombie houses. And there's a bunch of those in the community that we find out where they're at, and then we'll go visit them in those locations and love them and encourage them. And it's addiction driven, which causes people that I'm working with to be in the situation, which is tough. And it's hard, especially when you see women out there. It's top-heavy men. It's 95% guys, but there are women that are outside, and they're the most vulnerable as well. They're usually attached to a gentleman who might be not the nicest person, but is better than 10 not nice people, right?
So it's Christmas season, Christmas weekend. Where does Christ fit into? What's the bridge? How is this? Because there's natural physical things.
Yep. So as a
spiritual things, it's kind of convoluted. It's complex. That's a better word.
Yeah, it is complex. So with us, as I'm clergy, so I'm an ordained minister. So our faith component of what we do is we live our faith on our sleeves. I live my faith out to our friends. I call them outdoors, and they know the hope that I bring out there. And it's through that relationship where dialogue happens. So we'll talk about things. And one of the ways that the hope of Christ comes in is that I've seen people's lives transformed who have made changes in their lives by adding the faith part to their life. Like Kevin, my van driver for Higher Ground, was a gentleman I met outside. Like these examples that we're talking about, hooked on crack cocaine, disconnected from his family, was in his late 40s. Now he's my age, 57. He's working for me. He's been sober for 8 years. There's hope. Like you said, hope is a certain expectation, and Christ comes through our actions. And then when they ask us, like, why are we doing what we do? The door opens for us to share faith with people, and some people embrace that. And others don't, and that's okay. It's like anybody.
It's got to hurt when they don't embrace it, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, especially like we've lost over the past 3 weeks, 3 people have died. I've done 3 services. I had to do 2 in one day, a committal service to the grave. And then, which Ernie was a guy that I led to Christ in the backwoods behind where now Dunkin' Donuts is on Park Street 10 years ago. But he never could turn his life around in regards to his addiction. And he passed away. They found him dead in the house. I had to do the committal. But for me, Ernie's in my future.
Right.
I have that hope that he maybe didn't get the life that he needed to live on this side of it, but I know that I'll see him again. But then there's guys and gals out there that I'm not sure. So for me, that's the urgency of keeping the love on people and encourage them. And if they don't want to close the deal with the Lord, I'm still going to help them in their natural journey of getting into housing, treating their addiction, getting their mental health under wraps. But if not, if they want that faith part, we bring it. We bring them to church with us.
You say closing the deal with the Lord. What does that mean?
To me, it's like, I'll say, like, I've done last rites on people. I've done like leading people to the Lord on their deathbed. I'll say, listen, because they're carrying a lot of guilt and shame and brokenness. And I'll say, listen, do you want to make it right with God? Like making it right, closing the deal, like saying, hey, Lord, forgive me of the things that I've done. I'm embracing you. I'm asking you to come in and change my life around, right? So, and a lot of our friends have done that with us outside because they carry this load of burning bridges and hurting their families. And the enemy, I call the devil, the enemy is trying to cause you not to turn to Christ. He wants you to live in that place of darkness. And we bring the light of hope of Christ, right? And in freedom and redemption and forgiveness, and then that happens on the streets. And here we are at Christmas time for us as Christians, right? Christmas, there's Christ in Christmas. This is what the season's all about, and it's about the birth of the Savior of the world, Emmanuel, God with us.
Right. Now, the last time we spoke, you talked about having some housing for people who might be struggling up on the north side. Was this for women or for...
Yeah, great, Tom. Thank you for bringing it up. So Lifehouse, my wife has been overseeing this project that we started. So a lot of our women outdoors cross over to sex trafficking. We connected with Judge Davis from Sex Trafficking Court here in Syracuse, and we took in our first resident in the beginning of November. So we have one woman living in a house with us 24/7 with wraparound service for her, with staff morning, noon, and night with her. Christmas time, Thanksgiving, we treated her and blessed her with a great Thanksgiving meal. We got Christmas presents for her kids. She has 2 kids that she hasn't seen, and now we're helping her restore those relationships.
Wow.
And she's going to be with us for 1 whole year.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And it's a whole rehabilitation process?
Yeah, it's to reset them, to restore them, to relaunch them, to rebuild them. Those are the 4 R's. And then within 1 year, if they embrace that process, they leave a whole different person. And there's the faith element there as well.
Right. How do people get involved?
So you can visit our website at inmyfatherskitchen.org. If you want to financially donate, you could donate there. You could drop off donations of clothing and things of that nature, but also you could buy our products, our sauce, our syrup.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about
that.
What else do you? Yeah, you just named a couple.
Yeah.
Name all of the types of products that you make.
So we sell a pasta sauce. I call it Taste and See. It's eating with a purpose. We have a pasta sauce that we
Did
carry.
you invent the
It's my grandma's recipe, Sicilian recipe.
All right.
Time.
Are there bananas in it?
No bananas.
No bananas.
It's got a little kick to it. Some people say there's a lot of red pepper in there. So, but it's good. And then our maple syrup, and then our coffee. And then we have, we sell a travel mug, a thermal thing that you can take with you for hot or cold drinks. And you can find all those through our website as well.
So do you want volunteers?
Volunteers, we don't take it. We have I have 15 staffers now, so it's all staff driven. The only time we ever use volunteers at special events, if we have like a 5K that we pull off or some other things, but COVID kind of put the
And there's a good
damper on
reason
it.
for that too.
Well, yeah, going out to the streets, you can't bring an unfamiliar face. We used to do that in the very beginning when we were smaller, and I realized if I brought Steve or Tom with me, that all of a sudden the person wouldn't
You have a problem
up.
You have a problem with Tom and Steve?
Hey, isn't that the elf on the shelf guy? No, but so unfamiliar face shuts down conversation.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to get intimate with someone, and when you bring out someone new, they clam up. So
right. What sides of our town, our community, do you go to look for people?
All through the city of Syracuse, all the way through. And we got some exciting news coming in January, end of January, February. We have a new medical outreach van that's being built for us. So it's 5 foot longer, a foot taller, and it's going to be really tricked out for a doctor and stuff. So yeah, but all through the city of Syracuse.
Gotcha. And do you look for doctors or that might want to
So Dr.
participate?
Lehman recruits physicians.
Okay, he does.
So
Okay.
I leave all that part of it to him. So I'm not a medical guy, so he handles all that.
Right. So quick question. So you put out the olive branch of hope for people, but that goes for everybody. You don't have to be an addiction. You don't have to be an addict to do that, right, John?
Exactly. So if you're listening right now and you feel like have no hope, it's Christmas time, and you feel like you're in a dark place, I would say it's time to surrender. Ask the Lord Jesus Christ to come into your heart, and he'll come in like a flood, and your life will change. I believe it with all my heart. It happened to me. I believe it could happen for you. So Merry Christmas, and embrace Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior.
John Tumino right there, co-founder of In My Father's Kitchen, inmyfatherskitchen.org. God bless you, and Merry Christmas, John.
Merry Christmas, Tom. Merry Christmas, Steve. Thank you.
Jim Deakins coming up next, owner of Crossroads Auction, right here on The Local Show on 570 WSYR 106.9 FM and on YouTube.